Hello. Once again, I'm Terry A. Webb with the Counseling Department here at Cuyahoga Community College, Metropolitan Campus. Today I'm going to talk to you about remembering what you read. And before we start on this journey, I want you to understand something, that it is actually normal for individuals to forget what they read. With our hectic lifestyles and the way that information is now being sent so faster and faster and faster daily, we have to develop strategies to be able to organize and be able to recall information that is given to us. I think back 20 years ago, the desktop computer I had on my desk was far less powerful than the phone I have on my hip even today. So information is now more readily accessible. Dewey Decimal System is almost obsolete, and we have to ingest large volumes of information in a short amount of time nowadays. So in this workshop, I'm going to try to introduce you all to something that will be beneficial to you in processing large amounts of information and being able to retain and recall this information, because there are different strategies that are employed for different types of reading material. But primarily today, I'm going to be focusing on textbooks and academic reading. And as we move forward, the agenda for today will cover what is academic reading. This is when we're going to discuss active reading, strategies for reading, reading strategies for textbooks, and a Q&A. Now, what is academic reading? Why do we even read at all? Most people in an academic environment read to either memorize information, respond to the author's argument, develop your own questions, and use the information for writing assignments. Now, in academic reading, it's not so much memorization of information as important as understanding what it is the author is writing about and gathering context clues and finding out the main points that surrounding an argument, a position, or some standard of information is being conveyed throughout the textbook or that reading assignment. See, we have to be able to respond to what it is. See, part of academic reading is being interactive with the text that you are involved with. We no longer just read things for rote memorization, as many people have discovered, and I know you have too, that doesn't work. Every time I've tried to memorize something word for word, it usually gets lost in translation. So it is better for me to try to understand what is being written, why it was being written, and who is it being written to. Sometimes that's important. And responding to an author's arguments, it forces us to actually critically think, because you don't necessarily have to agree with everything that an author does, even though that may not be the course or the cause for that course or that reading. But when you start to critique or to critically analyze what it is that you're reading, you will start to remember a little more and develop your own questions. A study technique that I've used a lot throughout even graduate school is that I develop questions as I was reading, much like that which would be on the test. And I would compose answers to those. And they were usually rather deep questions, because I wanted to really interact with the test. And if you develop questions, you will start to own it and use the information for writing assignments. Very little in academia is not something that involves writing. Essay questions, short answer questions, and extended response questions are common in academia, even in the realms of math and science. We must be able to convey the information that we have received, either through lecture or reading, into a organized format, such as a paper, a response, or a short essay. Now, active reading. Active reading is something that is really, really important, because taking notes while you're reading is beneficial. Because unlike most people, I know that I have the problem sometimes of getting off task. My mind may wander. I start thinking about other things. I may be hungry. I may hear a noise that distracts me or disrupts me from continuing on at the pace I was. So a lot of us are very active and we have a lot of things going on. So taking notes while you're reading is not a bad idea, but you don't write down everything that you're reading. You pull out the real good points that are within that area and ask questions of self and text. When you're reading and you read a paragraph, what is wrong with you formulating a question about that paragraph and then responding with an answer? Ask questions. What is this paragraph or this section of the text really telling me? That helps you to start to really remember what it is because you're interacting. Make it active and discover patterns. Patterns would be something like you must have A to get to B to get to C. It's almost like playing that game of Operation when we were children. If you touch the sides, the buzzer goes off. But in order to win the game, you have to take all the parts out systematically and take them out in a manner that does not raise alarm in the game. So you have to discover the patterns, or that matching game we played when we were little. They had the cards with one with a leaf, one with a card, one with maybe a toothbrush, and one with maybe a little star on it. And then they would be mixed around, and then you'd have to remember where it was or get a best guess. Now, discovering patterns is important because as these cards are shuffled, there's some people who have the mental acuity to be able to follow the cards and be able to do that. But then there are people like me and a lot of us regular people who can't do that. But when we're studying, we should be looking for patterns. We should be looking for associations. The star should match the other star that we pull off. We should be looking for things that help us have these key reminders of, yes, before I do this, I should do this. And look for main ideas. What is the text really talking about? Now, one way to do that is to actually engage the table of contents. And usually at the beginning of most chapters in a lot of textbooks, there is an outline or a summary of what the text is going to be expounding about. Now, it is actually very good to do that. I know most of the time we don't look at the table of contents. We don't look at the introduction. We don't look at all the prefaces and everything that's there. We have a tendency to go straight to what it is that we want to read. And that can be a problem. It is good to know what that section of the textbook, what that novel and everything may be focusing about, because then your mind is more focused on what it should be because you know what to look for. You have an idea. It's almost like getting a murder mystery book. You read the introduction, but no murder mystery ever occurs. Well, then you now have a problem with this textbook. If you're reading a biology book, well, and it's about a certain section of biology, let's say photosynthesis or something, well, you know then everything after that part of the introduction should be giving you further information on photosynthesis. And that's what you're going to be looking for. That's what you should be gaining knowledge on and looking for supporting evidence. Now, you know that eventually you're going to probably have to write a paper. And in writing papers, you need to have citations. You need to look for things that support or defeat what it is that you're trying to do. And looking for supporting evidence is accomplished by systematically reading something and taking it apart, dismantling it in a way, and looking for how things fit together. Once again, we're discovering patterns. And you want to know, if you say this in the writing, how do we know this is actually factual? And questions like that should come up, especially nowadays with a lot of reading being done on the internet. Everything on the internet that says it's academic is not academic. What are the sources? Where did they get the information from? And then we go on and we use highlighting. Now, in a textbook, if it's 40 lines on the page, highlighting should not be on 40 lines on the page. You should only highlight essential material, essential points in the reading. The page should not look like it's been recolored because of your highlighter. So that's why highlighting appropriately is so important. And then we go on, strategies for reading. Always analyze headings and subheadings. Always try to find out, what am I going to be reading about? It does make the reading much more important to you, much more clear, because you now understand what it is you're looking for. Analyze italicized words. Words are in italics for a reason. You should make it a point to try to understand that word and understand how it fits into the flow of what is being written. It could be a key word to you deciphering or understanding later on what is actually transpiring in the text. Use glossary or dictionary. Spot key terms. Record definitions of unfamiliar words. We are all in an academic environment. It is actually essential that we learn to increase our vocabulary. When we graduate from institutions of higher learning, our vocabulary should at least double over what it was prior to us getting there. See, using a glossary or dictionary is not a bad thing, as some students may think. I myself still buy a brand new printed dictionary at least every 2 to 5 years so that I can stay up to date on all the words. Using the glossary in the back of your book, if it's a specialized area, helps you to gain a further working knowledge of the terminology within your discipline or field. And a dictionary is really good when you're reading because you're going to encounter words that you don't quite understand what they mean. So in order for you to understand or even remotely remember what you are reading, you need to understand what the meaning of the words are that are in the text. So a dictionary is your friend. Now, strategies for reading. Think critically about what you read. I mentioned this earlier. You should be analyzing what you're reading to a point to try to understand how does it all fit together. When you're looking for patterns, as evidenced earlier, what has the instructor said? What has the book said? How am I understanding this? How are they interdependent? How are they mutually exclusive? You start looking for patterns and ways to have things link and hook up together. And you write down these important ideas. Repetition in a book is indicative of something. Repetition by your professor is indicative of something. So you need to make it a point to write down these important ideas. And while you're reading, highlight important ideas. I said that earlier. Everything in the book should not be highlighted, but the important ideas, the new terms, all the stuff that you're encountering that you don't know, you need to make sure you highlight it and then write it down and make questions out of important ideas and key terms. If you come across a new term, turn it into a question and then answer that question. Write a little something about it. That will help you further store that in your mind so that you will be able to recall it when the time is needed to recall it. Reading strategies for textbooks. Look at the structure of the chapter. I said this earlier. It is absolutely essential to look at how the chapter is set up so that you can understand the patterns, so that you can understand the linkages between all of the different parts and the components that go together. You need to understand the table of contents and the introduction to the chapters and what in the preface and everything that's coming before is important because it lets you know what's going to be coming. And if that's not what happens, then maybe you're reading the wrong book. Now, but the structure of a chapter gives you information of how information will be presented. This also too helps you to set up your outline for studying. That way you don't have to write down everything. If you're writing down everything in a lecture, it's not effective use of your time. If you're writing down everything in the textbook, that's not effective use of your time. You need to sit back and listen. Look for repetition. Look for italicized. Look for bolding. Look for things in the text that stand out. And then as you interact with the text, you write down those few things. I've learned that I've read 20 or 30 pages and may only have 2 pages of notes that are handwritten because these are the key facts that were presented in this. Because a lot of times when we're reading, they're case studies, they're examples, it's exposition on a term, a phrase, or a concept. And the concept is what you're after. Learn how to wade through the water and find out what it is that you really need out of this reading assignment. And then you take that information, you write it down. And once again, never forget to take this information, make it into a little quiz for yourself, and then take this little quiz. And then you can also share this with friends. This helps you take this information and you can store it in your mind in a manner that you'll be able to recall it quicker. You won't necessarily have to have test freeze or test anxiety because you've been interacting with the text. You have to do something with it. This active reading concept is super important. You have to make it a point to do something with the text. Very few of us can get anything by just opening a book up and just reading it. What are you reading it for? What are you looking for? What do you hope to retain when you read it? What do you think will be on the test? What is the most important part of this that may appear on a state test for me to get my license within a certain discipline? We all need to have these questions answered when we're reading. See, in the structure of a chapter, and all of the bullets and everything that come before it let you know what's coming. So your eyes and your ears should be alert to that as you're reading. And sometimes it doesn't hurt to read out loud because that helps you to process it a little differently and you're able to interact with it a little differently. And it also too will help you to think about what it is that is going on. See, when you read strategies for textbooks, read each subject for 30 minutes to 1 hour. See, some people think that they can sit down and they can read for 4 straight hours. I'm not one of those people, and very few people have I dealt with over the few years that I've been alive. The 24 years I've been in higher ed, have been able to sit down and read for 4 to 8 hours straight. But it is actually essential that you may need to take a break. I know myself recently, I can read for about 45 minutes, and I will interact with it. I'll take notes, I'll write questions, then I have to stop. Now, the trick with this is that you don't stop for 2 or 3 days. You take a break, go get some water, do what you need to do, eat, and then come back to it. The pitfall of this is that once you stop before you finish, a lot of people procrastinate, not anybody that you know, procrastinate, and they don't go back to it in a timely manner. So in essence, they never really get to the review. They never get to recite. And reciting is actually going back over because reading is not necessarily studying. You have to interact with it. It is absolutely possible that if you don't interact with it, you won't remember it. Think of all the things that you read in your life and you have no recall of what it is that you read. And you'll say, I think I read that. And that's all you can say because there was no interaction. Think about it. When I was in the grocery store the other day, I read the label on the back of some sodas and some cans of soup. I remember that there was too much salt in both of them, especially the soup. I do not remember how much. So if it was a chemistry class and I need to quote exactly how much sodium was in each can, I'm done. I know it's salt in the can. That's it. I needed to interact with it. Maybe if I wrote it down. Maybe if I quizzed myself on it. Maybe if I stated it again, I'll be able to tell you how many milligrams or grams of sodium are in this can of soup. You have to quiz yourself. These Trivial Pursuit games and these little games that people do, Sudoku and different things, that keeps the mind sharp. Quiz yourself. You need to put yourself in a mind state that you go over this information on a regular basis. Just like we exercise our bodies to stay in great shape, we have to exercise our minds. We have to put this information before us, and we need to make sure that we interact with it. Because I look at it as this. None of us will ever achieve the body and physique of a bodybuilder if we just look at the weights. I've tried it. It doesn't work. You're going to have to actually grab the weights, do something with the weights, and then you test yourself when you stand in front of the mirror and you do all your posing and everything to see how you're looking. The same thing with reading. Looking at the book is not good enough. You're going to have to touch the book. You're going to have to write down. You're going to have to put questions together. You're going to have to share these questions with other people. You're going to have to review them. You're going to have to rewrite them. You're going to have to pull out the important points. You're going to have to look for arguments. You're going to have to use the dictionary. You're going to have to use the glossary. You're going to have to make this an assignment. And after you do all of this meticulous working out, you will then understand, just like the bodybuilder, that I look good, and you will feel good about what it is you read because now no test can shake you. No anxiety attack will be there when you face the test because you've interacted. You've actually utilized the workout skills of your mind on a textbook. And it sounds like it's a lot of work. No, it's not really a lot of work. It's time that you're going to have to put in. Procrastination is not your friend. Treat procrastination like something you never want a part of. Treat it as a place that is across or somewhere far across the seas that you never want to see. It's not a tropical paradise. If anything, it's an Arctic desert. It's nothing there but damnation and ruination because your life is stagnated because you sit there doing nothing. Wondering, oh, I'll get to it. Oh, yeah, one day. Stick-to-itiveness is important to success, and we have to make it a point to do what it is we said we're going to do. Set aside times throughout the day that you're going to read. Know when is the best time for you to interact and do reading. I know myself personally, I cannot read at night. I have to wake up early in the morning when nothing's on ESPN that I want to see, when nothing's on the Cartoon Network that I want to see, and most people in the house are asleep. I will get up and I will read, sometime for 2 or 3 hours, and I will interact with the text and I will regain it. Now, if I do the exact same thing at 10 o'clock at night, it would be just like I never read it. You have to know yourself and set aside the time and be disciplined enough to interact and work out. Treat it like your workout. Work out with your textbooks. You might want to do math at 3:15. You might want to do science at 5:25. But be honest and be strong in your conviction to this and stay on this pattern. Because once you do it for a while, if you've ever been on a workout routine, you get addicted to working out. Yes, you can get addicted to getting your schoolwork done. Because I don't know anybody that's not addicted to receiving A's and B's on their grades. That's something we all look forward to. Make it a point to be dedicated and serious about what it is that you are reading. Make it a point to stay focused. Make it a point to review and do all the things you need to do to go on. And if you have any questions about the topic that I've just covered, please feel free to make an appointment with me. I would love to sit down with you and discuss potentially some of the great things that you're doing to increase your likelihood of being a good student to a great student. And we can also address some of the things you're doing that are counterproductive to your pursuit of higher education. My office is in the Student Services Center, and I look forward to you coming. Remember, actively read. Engage the reading assignment. Look for critical points, key terms, and write while you are reading. This is one technique. I know that this one works. There are others out there, but give it a shot. What's the worst thing that can happen? You actually remember a large percentage of everything that you read in academia, and you will learn what to read and how to remember it. Have a good time.